Hey, my guest tonight, retired Judge Jim Gray, is going to come in and talk about conditions in prisons and in jails. I also have a couple more guests coming. I hope they're coming anyway, who were former inmates, and they're going to talk about the conditions as well. So join us in about 5 minutes, and we'll see what they have to say. Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust. Turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Good evening, everybody. I hope you're all doing well. We've had quite a mixture here in California, boy. We've had sunny weather, we've had storming weather, hail today. In fact, I even went shopping for a little bit at Safeway, wearing a t-shirt, jeans, like we do in California, and came out of the store and it was hailing. And it was cold and hail. And then rushed out of the car, came home, put the groceries away. An hour later, sun's out, all shiny and happy. So it's been kind of crazy out there. My name is Charlotte. I'm going to be your host for the next hour, and we've got a great guest tonight. As you guys probably know, because there was people that listen frequently to me, is I spent 5 years as a crime court reporter in Woodland, and so I saw firsthand a lot of these people, a lot of criminals get sent to jail. And I had the opportunity to tour the county jail in Yolo County a couple of times. But my guest tonight, retired Judge Gray, he has gotten calls, from inmates wanting to talk about the conditions in the jails. And so we're going to talk to him about that tonight. And like I said, I don't always like to deal with paranormal topics. I like to deal with other stuff. I'm a journalist, so this is why I love to get people on like this, so we can chat about it. All right. I'm also the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team based out of Sacramento. We're 45 strong up and down the state. So if you have a paranormal problem, we usually have somebody within an hour reach to get to you. So hit me up on the CaliforniaHauntsRadio.com website. Shoot me or hit me up here in the chat room. And we'll get something going to get somebody out there to help you. And we don't charge, because how can you charge for something that technically you can't really, that's not solid enough to prove. But the main thing is with us is we were just here to help people and educate people about the paranormal. Okay? We're not out for anything like that. Anyhow, without further ado, actually, real quick, I'm teaching 2 classes. I had another class last night. I'm teaching a Ghost Hunting 101 class on I believe it's the 21st of May. See, I'm getting lost on my days. Hang on. Let me look at my calendar. There we go. Yeah, at 2 p.m. at 11 a.m. on the 21st of May, I will be teaching a Ghost Hunting 101 class where you learn the basics of ghost hunting, but you also learn the stuff that you need when you go out, protocols, things so that you can get better evidence. So if you're not a full-blown ghost hunter and you're a recreational ghost hunter, this will help you. This will help you get better EVPs and stuff, when you're in some haunted hotel somewhere. So you should check the class out. That's over on the California Haunts Meetup. Just Google California Haunts Meetup. Also, the following weekend, I'm teaching a psychic development class level 1. And, with Nancy Matz coming on Friday, we talked about that. And on Sunday, we talked a little bit about that, how, controlling your psychic abilities is really important, especially when you're first starting out. Because once you open that door a crack, anything can come through, just not the nice ones. So this will teach you meditations. It'll teach you your spirit library. You'll get to meet your spirit guides. You'll get to meet your spirit animal and things like that. But while it's doing that, it's also teaching you to leave your body to do this, and then to come back, get back into the body and shut that door. Okay, because that's what you practice. By the time class is over, you'll be able to shut that door almost, pretty much instantly. And that's what you want. Because like I said, you may open the door, some nice stuff might come through, but there's also stuff out there that wants to come through and mess with you. And this is the way to control that, to learn how to control that. So if you're interested in that, check out, again, the California Haunts Meetup. Signups are over there. And I got to tell you, for these classes, seats and do go quickly. So I would get over there and sign up. Plus, they're online, so you can do it from the comfort of your home, right? Okay? So, yeah, there you have it. Anyway, now let's get to our guest. Finally, right? All right. Without further ado, dun, dun, dun. Hello, sir.
Good evening.
It's a mouthful when I go.
Well, Nice to be with you. Nice to share thoughts with good people.
I'm real excited about this because, like I said, I had toured the Yolo County Jail, and I'm not going to say anything about it because what I saw, of course, because I was depressed. So, if you know what I mean.
Charlotte, let me tell you how I kind of began in this recently.
Okay.
That I was a guest on George Nuri's radio show Coast to Coast a year ago, the 4th of July, talking about our nation's failed policy of drug prohibition. And actually, as a sitting trial court judge here in a fairly conservative Orange County, California, I held a press conference, which judges do not do, back in 1992, and told the world, anyone that would listen, that I, as a former criminal defense attorney in the Navy, as former federal prosecutor, and now a judge for then 9 years trial court, that our nation's policy of drug prohibition was not working. So I've been talking about that ever since, and it is not. We have turned a political phrase, political watchword of get tough on crime in the Richard Nixon administration now into a national policy. And I can tell you and our listeners, the United States of America has 5% of the world's population and 25% of its prisoners. And a former U.S. Senator named Jim Webb from Virginia was faced with those statistics and said, look, either we are the most criminally oriented people in the world or we're doing something wrong. Which do you think it is? So we have too many people in prison. So I was talking about this, and as a result, I received 12 letters from different incarcerated people, men around in prisons around the country, and I started communicating with them, talking with them. And of course, if they think you're a judge, you have a magic wand and you can make all these problems go away, which simply is not true. But I asked them, tell me what's going on inside prisons, the life in prison, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so I started getting responses. And what's going on is horrific. It's just not who we are. And bad things are happening. I read an article in the Orange County Register here in Orange County just last Sunday. And it said that there is, in fact, I have it here, that they call it the federal women's prison dubbed a rape club masks several crises. And there've been programmed rape and sexual abuse going on by the prison staff for these women. It was a federal prison in Dublin, California. It's about 21 miles east of Oakland, and it's horrific. And so I wrote articles about this, and I quoted Fyodor Dostoevsky, which is a Russian novelist, and he said something we should all understand, which is you can tell more about walking into a prison for a society than you can in any other thing that society does. And I don't think we would be very good responding with regard if anyone were to walk into our nation's jails and prisons today. And it's up to us to do something about it, because by God, it is our government. And if it's not working, it's our fault. It's our responsibility. We have no one to blame but ourselves. Other than that, I have no thoughts about the subject whatsoever.
When people think about criminals going to prisons, I mean, there's a huge attitude out there that, they deserve what they get. But I mean, it's one thing to go and live in a, 8-foot cell, but it's another thing to have to live in deplorable conditions while you're doing that. I mean, bad enough they're cut off from their families anyway.
And that's true. Look, let me ask our listeners right now, close your eyes, almost literally, and think, if you were going to spend the next 10 years in prison, what would be going through your mind? And yes, there are some people, and I've been a trial court judge, I was a prosecutor, all that sort of stuff. I've seen there's some people out there that see the rest of us as their lawful prey, and they should be removed from society.
Right.
Not lots of people, but there are some. Yes, they had a bad childhood, and yes, we should try to help them mentally when they're in our custody, but they simply could not be out in a normal society. But maybe that's 15% of the people. And then there are some people, there's a guy named Nolan who was an assemblyman in Burbank, I believe it was, who was very conservative in California. And he was saying, voting in favor of longer and longer prison sentences for more and more offenses, until one day he was convicted of a political fraud case and sent to prison for 2 years. And he got out, totally different change of mind. He said, there are too many people in prisons that should not be there. And he's right. There are too many people in prison for too long a period of time. The problem is, of course, as you know, people who are incarcerated do not have a whole lot of political lobby strength. They don't have a whole lot of political people backing them up, but it's up to us. Who better than a retired judge and you and California Hans? Let's talk about this and open it up. You said earlier, you're going to help people open up their minds and educate people.
Sure.
And that's exactly what we should do.
Now, there's not enough prisons for everybody. So is there overcrowding? I mean, how crowded are they?
Inescapably, this same article said that when finally the federal authorities, because the media called attention to this problem with the rape club in Dublin prison, and so the authorities tried to move some people out so it wouldn't seem as overcrowded as it really was. And finally, one woman who was prisoner there was complaining that she had been sexually abused, and they said in the newspaper that the officials tried to get her out, said, we'll parole you right away to a halfway house so they could get her out of prison so she wouldn't talk to the journalists. And she declined. She said, I want to be here. I want to talk to them. Bless her heart. But this should not be going on in our country today. Absolutely not. It's an abysmal thing. Assuming it is, I'm taking that on face value, but I'm assuming it is.
Well, a while back, I saw something on KVIE with a woman, and I don't know what prison it was, but she was incarcerated. And I don't know what led to this, but she was forcibly sterilized while she was in prison.
I can't even contemplate that. That's not something. And maybe, again, let's not jump to conclusions.
Right.
Maybe her health was at risk. I don't know. But on its face, that's something that should be a medical determination and not something by anybody in the prison authorities.
What types of conditions are they living in?
It depends. There are some, like Lompoc Federal Prison. I took a tour of them 40 years ago, but it's kind of like a golf course setting, and a lot of white-collar criminals had been there. They knew they were in prison. Actually, I saw it, and they had a painted line, and if you crossed that line, you've escaped from prison. Okay, that's maybe 7 or 8% of the people, but it wasn't too bad from what I saw. But most of them, from the reports, the health care is abysmal. I have a medical doctor who I quoted recently with his authority. He's in Seagoville prison in the state of Texas, and he was sentenced for overprescribing opiates. And he said he maintained that he was innocent. He was offered a 1-year prison sentence if he pleaded guilty. He said, I'm innocent. I didn't do this. It wasn't my intent. And he was charged and convicted, and now he's serving a 20-year prison sentence. But he is a medical doctor, and he told me, there are people that have aneurysms that are not treated, and they die. And people that, have these other pneumonia. And, you shouldn't die from pneumonia necessarily. And, of course, then you get into COVID. He's citing these medical horror stories that should not be. I have a good friend also here in Southern California. He's OBGYN, and he volunteered to work in a state prison for women. And he said that the medical attention for those women was abysmal, his words. It's just not something that we should tolerate.
Well, I know I've got a friend I know somebody who's married to an inmate, and I believe he's got a brain tumor or something going on like that. And she's trying really hard to get him out right now because he's just, it's just not good. It's not a good situation.
Well, you're going to always see horror stories. Let me put it this way. There's some people in prison that are elderly. They couldn't hurt you if they wanted to. They couldn't throw their walker at you.
Right.
They have ramps instead of stairways. They have ground up food because they can't, they don't have, they're not given dentures, that sort of thing. If you have to have those people in prison, and many of them I question, Charles Manson should have been in prison the rest of his life. I don't care what his situation was, but there's some people, if you have to keep them in prison, put them in an old folks home. Let's segregate them together. A lot of them are preyed upon by the younger people, and it's you can get in. I'm not a sociologist, but I have a lot of experience in this stuff. People, when they're younger, particularly males, I agree, when they're 15, 20, 25, that's the time in which their brain hasn't quite matured yet, and they don't really understand the consequences. And by the time, they're 25, 28, they're pretty much the maximum time that they'd be involved in crime. That's when we get them and we sentence them to prison for 40 years. I mean, wait a minute. Let's catch them earlier and mentor them and show them. For example, the first drug case I tried as a federal prosecutor in Los Angeles, it was a DEA case and a buy-bust situation, a lot of drugs and stuff. And the DEA agent who was about to go in and make the ultimate buy and then arrest everybody in sight looked and said, oh, wait a minute. No, I know that guy who's selling those drugs. He was a friend of mine in high school. We have to substitute me out because he'll recognize me. So they did. And I said, well, Roger was his name, the DEA agent. Tell me about your friend. And he said, well, Judge Gray, or actually Mr. Gray at the time, I was mentored by our basketball coach when I was in high school. We were friends, but he was mentored by a drug dealer. And but for the grace of God, the situation would have been reversed. I would have been the drug dealer. He would have been the DEA agent. Mentoring is hugely important. And those are things that we have to focus on, particularly for our young people. Then you go back to the war on drugs and drug prohibition. We have juvenile street gangs all throughout our country that are using the sale of illegal drugs as a recruiting tool. Hey, you want to make some money? Come and sell drugs. Join our gang and sell drugs. We couldn't do it worse if we tried.
Oh, I agree 100%. But the problem, I think a lot of the problem out there too is that, like you say, mentoring. My friend who is trying to get on, he's at an event right now, so he's trying to come on. He's an activist who works with the younger kids to help prevent them going to jail. You know, they have like group meetings and stuff with them and stuff, and he works with them because he did time himself, so he understands the way the system works. You know, and I agree with that part. I agree with you 100%. I think this has to start when they're young, but it's hard to lure because, you know, their lives, they're not making a lot of money. They're flipping burgers at McDonald's, and then they see these drug dealers, and they're driving in Corvettes and Porsches, and you know, and they want that. So it's really hard. So there has to be some way to work with them to show them, hey, you know.
Let me tell you about two programs going on right now in Southern California.
Okay.
One is Open Gate International, run by some wonderful people. In fact, you may have heard of this guy, Pujols, who's a professional baseball player for the Angels and then for the Dodgers. His wife, Deidre, they use their own money to fund this. They have a cooking class that they will teach. It's a 12-week program, and they will teach you to become a cook or a chef. And they don't charge for their time, and they'll find women that have been sexually trafficked. They'll find people that have been in drug rehab that have gone through that, and former prisoners that have now been on parole. And they will teach them how to become a chef within 12 weeks. And after that 12-week class, they have about a 75% success rate in getting these people good jobs. And their recidivism rate, their repeat offender list is plummets, because if you have a job, you're much less likely to get back in crime. It works. So we actually I took them to Norco State Prison, which is in Riverside County near Orange County, saying, why wait for these felons to be released? Let's teach them now. And the warden was interested. We were going to start the program. Then the COVID virus came. But that's a program that works. Number two, there's a fellow by the name of Dr. Henry T. Nicholas. You may not know his name, but he was one of the two founders of Broadcom. Namely, he's a billionaire. And so he teamed up with a former judge on our court, Jack Mandel, bless his heart forever. And they came up with the Nicholas Academic Centers. What does that mean? In Santa Ana, right now, there are 3 Nicholas Academic Centers that mentor and tutor mostly Hispanic high school kids after school. So they teach them, not only help them tutor in their classroom, but also show them the possibilities. Show them that you too can get a scholarship to a 4-year university. You too can be a professional. You too, and they have a success rate. Something like 99% of all of the kids that they tutor go on to a further education, and 80% have a full ride scholarship to 4-year universities. And then they get a job, and they show that you too can do this. I didn't know the possibilities. I didn't, you know, right. Rosa Diaz is now running the program. She's one of our graduates, and I interviewed her on a podcast that I had, and she said, you know, there was nothing special about me. I was the first one to graduate from high school from my family, but I realized, hey, I too, she got a scholarship to Allegheny College, 4-year scholarship, and she got her degree. Then she went to USC and got a master's in education, and now she's working. She sees this. It isn't special if you can get this done. Now, I agree. Henry Nicholas is a billionaire. He spent $7.2 million a year for the last 2 years. I can't quite afford that, and I don't think you can either, even on your salary at California Haunts. But but there's some people that can. These are things that work, and we must reinvent them and get this word out, because things like this work. And crime goes down, and victimization goes down, and taxes go down, and incarceration goes down. Those are things that work, and we need to get this word out. So work harder at this, Charlotte. We need to get this word out more.
Well, I agree, and you know what? And I see with my friends that are doing this, working with the kids, which is something at some point I want to get back. I want to get involved to do. And right now, I just have life things going on, and But this is how I'm trying to help them a little bit. To have people like you on.
And you
To
are.
get the word out. And I understand the story. I know some of the stories because I've heard Henry tell me the stories, where these kids come from broken homes. There's bad things going on in the homes, and that's what starts this whole cycle off, because they just feel useless and they think they're not going to get anywhere.
And that's right. We were also able here in Orange County to start something we called Peer Court, which is now we take the probation department screens real juvenile delinquency cases, and not people that are holding up liquor stores, but also not just jaywalking, but burglaries and things like that. And we'll take them to a high school outside of their area, so none of the kids there know them. We'll impanel a high school jury, and the juries will ask them questions. And they get pretty sophisticated. Hey, you were smoking marijuana, weren't you? Yes. You have a younger sister, don't you? Yes. Do you want her to smoke marijuana? No, I can't really say. Well, don't you realize that if you do it, regardless of what you tell her, she's probably going to do that too. Have you thought of that before? And we'll have the parents there as well. And you'll say, wait a minute, are you kidding me? You didn't know that your 14-year-old daughter was out at 2:00 in the morning on a school night? You don't even know her friends? Hey, there's a difference between being a parent and being a friend. That's a much different thing. You're their parent. You're holding them responsible. So, we do that sort of thing. And I will even ask them, say, close your eyes. Literally, think of your 3 best friends. You don't have to tell me who they are. Just think of them. You have them in mind? Yes. Are they going to be successful 5 or 10 years from now? No, I really don't think that. Well, don't you realize that if you hang out with them and you hang out with the young people that ditch school and smoke marijuana and talk back to their teachers, not going to be successful, you're probably going to do the same. But if you hang out with kids that roll up their sleeves, work hard, and be successful, you probably will too. Let me tell you a secret. You show me your friends, I'll show you your future. So we get this word out into the high schools, and it works.
Oh, I believe it. Like I said, I've been keeping a close eye on what my friends do, and all the youth programs that they put together. They've even started training people to be mentors.
You can't do something better than mentoring. Let me ask you. Let me ask all of the people listening and watching right now. What's the most important thing in life? Which is about the most general question I can think of. And the answer for me is gratification. Realizing that the world is a somewhat better place because you are on it. And what better way of getting that gratification than helping some other human being, young human being, to kind of see the light and realize, hey, I too can be successful. If I really work hard, I know I can be successful. The American dream still lives. We can pursue it. We can obtain it if we just work hard, roll up our sleeves, and be responsible. And then you understand most people, and I heard this, and I would tell people in my peer courts as well, most people are hired for ability and fired for attitude. You're hired for ability, but you're fired because you just don't get along with people. And, if I'm a manufacturer or I'm a restaurant and I have hired somebody to work and they don't get along with my customers, they're not going to help me any, and they're going to lose their job. Attitude is huge, huge. Results. That's what we do. And in America, it's still there, and we can still pursue this. We just need to mentor our young people and sometimes our older people to get this across, but we can. By the way, would you like to know a really good investment opportunity? I'll tell you this for you and your listeners. Are you aware that Federal Express and United Parcel Service are about to merge companies?
Really?
Yeah, and the name of the new
Whoa.
company is going to be Fed Up. Got to have a little humor in this world.
That's it. I agree with that. You know why? I'm a postal brat. My dad was a post office guy. So when UPS came out, he was just like, no, no, no. But yeah, that's fun. It's hilarious to me. Absolutely hilarious. Now, is it worthwhile when when people get out of jail and they become mentors for these kids too, because they can tell the kids directly?
The answer is yes. So I'm in a black robe and people will listen to me because I can put them where they don't want to be.
Sure.
But look, if I was in a juvenile street gang and I can tell you the life and I can tell you what happened and I can tell you the results, they'll listen to you. You can be a marvelous mentor. And I've been in touch with numbers of people in prison who want to become mentors for particularly juvenile street gang kids, showing it's the wrong way to go on a one-way street. So the answer is yes, we all can do this. We all have things to offer. I think being a baseball coach or working in scouts or working in choruses, choirs, all that sort of stuff. It's constructive, it's beneficial. And as opposed to, because there'll always be somebody out there to mentor our children. And if it isn't the juvenile street gangs or the warlords or whatever, there's always somebody like Charles Manson out there to pick up the others. And say what you will, Charles Manson was brilliant at mentoring his supposed family, and he sure led them astray. So if the basketball coaches and the scout leaders and the parents don't do it, the Charles Manson of this world will. It's hugely important, and we need to focus on it and do it.
I can honestly say that I'm glad I don't have kids, because it would be so hard.
Like some of mine?
No, thanks. I got dogs, cats, and birds. I'm good. But I mean, it would be so hard. Depending on where I'm living, of course, but it would be so hard to raise a kid now because of all this influence that's out there.
No, I don't. Wait a minute. It's always been hard to raise kids. You can go out to some agrarian. It's always hard. And I never held a baby until I held my own child. I didn't take any schooling. We went through some parenting classes when my then wife was pregnant. But it's always hard. And frequently, unfortunately, in today's world, it mostly or more often falls upon the mother, and it's such a difficult thing to do. And when I was, I had my first child, I was in the Navy. I was a Navy lawyer. I didn't know anything about practicing law, didn't know anything about the Navy, and I was on independent duty in Guam. I was isolated, had no money. It was hard, but you keep focused and you stay around other people who can help you, you can band together. Other young parents, other young mothers and sisters and stuff, so that family is hugely important, but it's always been hard to be a parent. Don't get me wrong.
Okay. It just strikes me because, what you hear about the schools, and the gang influence in school, and they try to recruit the kids when they're so young. I mean, that's spooky.
It's true, and it's really hugely important. Again, that's why we need our scout leaders and our basketball coaches and our PTA leaders. I happen to think that school choice, the literal fact that we have so many schools in our world today, in our country, that are failing our children, which is an absolute travesty, and it's unnecessary. The most important issue, I think, is empowering parents to choose where their government money is going to be spent for the education of their children. I ask this question, who is in a better position to decide where and how your child should be educated? You as the parent or the government? And never has anyone said it's the government, but a lot of parents are not that involved. I understand, and they have their difficulty, but a lot of them are. And in fact, let me give you a little quick advertisement that today, my wife and I just got the word that we have written a book. It's a novel on school choice as a theme. It's called 2030 Kids. And it's going to be published. We've just gotten it out recently, but it shows how, if parents are empowered to choose where their government money is going to be spent, they'll choose excellence and they will get it. It's a hugely important issue. You bring competition into schools and all of a sudden the schools start doing better. If you think about it, probably public education is the only area in our society today that I can think of where the provider dictates what the consumer will purchase. And so it doesn't work. and the teachers don't get paid for being excellent. They get paid for longevity. So, they get, basically they realize that there's more money in administration than there is in teaching. So the better teachers end up gravitating out of the classroom into administration. In private schools or where there's competition, that doesn't happen. I was proud to say I was the Libertarian candidate for vice president back in 2012. And I was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 2012, talking about this. And people soon started wagging their fingers at me saying, Judge Gray, we don't have any bad schools anymore. We've had school choice now for 10 years. All the bad schools have either gotten better or they've gotten out of business, and others have come in to take their place. Competition works. We need to bring that back into our society, and we can, and we are.
Do you think, and because like you say, a lot of there's a lot of parents that either don't want to, don't want to deal with it, or are too busy, like you got the latchkey kids and all this going on. Do you think that it helps? I mean, to like some place for after school for these kids to go to?
The answer is yes. Of course, nothing works for everything, but
right.
So I'm a parent. And I don't really care that much. I'm busy. I'm doing other things for my children or for my family. But you live next door and you do care. And your children are not, you're going to take them and go to a different school and use your school voucher to pay for it. My kids play with your kids. They're going to, hey, wait a minute. I want to go where Charlotte's kids are going.
Right.
So there'll be that coattail thing too. It basically works. And there have been numbers of places. New Orleans has done it. A lot of places in Florida, Indiana, as I said, Milwaukee. It works, and we need to get this word out there. You find that when I moved down into Orange County, California, I moved into Irvine right away because one reason was Irvine has really good schools. So I had school choice because I could choose that. And then we were raising our son here and actually in Newport Beach. And I didn't like the public schools here. My wife didn't either. So we had the money to pay for him to go to a private school. So I have school choice. But so if my son was going to go into a classroom where the teacher wasn't very good, I could stand up and I'd have the horsepower to say, I don't want him to be with Mr. Jones. I want him to be with Mrs. Smith. And either they'd move him to Mrs. Smith or we'd move him out someplace else. So in the poorer areas, that's where the poor teachers go. That's where the students are failing our children. And unfortunately, many of them are African-American or Hispanic or whatever. It's not racial, it's economic. Right. We need to empower those parents to choose. They can have this little voucher in their hand. I'm going to spend this money on a different place. And then, maybe my son shouldn't be a psychiatrist. He's really good at mechanical engineering, or he's really good at being a mechanic itself. Let them send them to occupational schools or for art and music schools or whatever. Let them choose. They will choose excellence. It's really coming. The minority people in our country are beginning to understand this. Hooray for that. And we're going to change away from these failing schools. And I'm glad to see it happening. Couldn't come sooner.
Don't they do that already in countries like Scotland?
Yes, in a lot of places. In a lot of places they do. And it's really a good idea. It works. It's the teachers' unions, and I love teachers. I mean, teachers, what a wonderful vocation to help young people get inspired about learning and being successful. But it's the teachers' unions that are causing these problems. They hate private schools. They hate the vouchers, but they're going to have to realize they're going to have to get better.
So how do you propose for people to get the vouchers? I mean, because it's hard right now with what's going on in Congress and everything. So,
You're right. But it's coming. It's simply a question of telling people the truth, showing them that they too could be empowered to do this. And, if they have a school that's failing their children, if I can tell you, if you had 200 parents up in a community holding up a voucher saying, hey, I've got some money here. Our schooling is failing. I want somebody to meet this demand. I assure you the demand will be met. If the demand is here, the demand will be met. It's that they don't have that power right now, and it's coming, and people are beginning to realize it. It's a revolution on its way, and it's a positive revolution.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, I have no qualms about it. I mean, I've seen kids, I've seen how, schools differ. I've seen that. And it's just, Yeah, I mean, some people feel like they have no choice because of the neighborhoods they're in. They're stuck with that particular school. They don't like their kids there because of what's going on. But and they throw their hands up because they can't do anything.
Well, our book is a novel, but it talks about, interesting kids in learning, interest in them in becoming investigators, interest them in showing, problem solving, not just 4 + 4 is 8 and that sort of stuff, which is important too, but teaching for the test. No, you teach them to problem solve. You teach them to realize, hey, wait a minute, this is a problem, let's dig in and see what we can do. And you ask them silly stuff. Let me share with you and our audience a secret that I at least was one time successful in being a parent. That I was driving my 3 kids, they were maybe 6 and 3 years old at the time, down in some rural area by a strawberry field. And you probably know that in most strawberry fields, they put plastic strips down so that, and I understand that the reason is either to keep some humidity in the soil, to keep fewer weeds there, and to keep the crop from touching the ground because then it won't rot. So I was looking at them and saying, hey, kids, look, that's where they raise plastic. Oh, really, Daddy? Oh, really? And I was quiet. And then maybe 5 miles down the road, one of my sons said, oh, come on, Dad. But it's important to get children to question. When you're 6 years old, your dad knows everything, but even question what your daddy says. And it's important to do that, to question everything, not to belittle it, but just to question it in your minds. And that's called education. And that's an important thing that we don't do in our public school. Oh, you got that answer wrong. Okay, so you're stupid and the rest. No. Question it. Go through these things.
Your sense of humor reminds me of my father's sense of humor. You have a similar sense of humor.
Well, would you like to hear my second favorite all-time play on words?
Let's do it.
Okay. I use these in my mediations. Now I do private judging, and I'll ask people, okay, what do you call an animal that has a nose and nothing else? Don't say ugly, of course, that would be cheating. What do you call an animal that has a nose and nothing else? And the answer is,
what is it?
Nobody knows.
Yeah, you remind me of my dad, I tell you.
Okay. Well, we call it, careful though, we call them dad jokes, not jokes. Make sure it's a D instead of a B in front of it, but yes, dad jokes, okay?
Dad joke. His favorite one was, did you hear about the holdup today?
No, I didn't. Tell me about it.
2 clothespins held up a handkerchief.
Okay, that works.
See? So you have a similar sense of humor. I think the mentor program is important. I covered gang shooting cases when I was working, and I remember seeing this is what got me, where the mothers come in. They're dressed in their finery, because the kids are in front of the judge, and they're crying, because the kids are arrested and all this. Then you look down on their arms, and they've got gang tattoos. And that's why I agree that I'm not saying that they're bad mothers or whatever. I'm not saying that. I don't want to get shot by anybody, but or make anybody mad. But that's what makes you think about what the living situation is like at home, with these kids, because the whole thing can be generational, and that's why this mentorship program stuff is so important.
It is. You're kind of a prisoner of your environment. A lot of, and I was in the Peace Corps in Costa Rica. I love Hispanic people. I speak Spanish. It's a more beautiful language than English. But you get into these. They're family oriented, but it isn't within their family to see the possibilities.
Right.
As soon as you graduate from high school, we need you to go out and get a labor job so that you can help support the other children in the family, that sort of thing. And you're imprisoned by your background, and you don't see the opportunities. You don't see the possibility. When I was in juvenile court, I was presiding in juvenile court for a while. I still remember that there was a grandmother who came into my court who felt it was an act of love to teach her 12-year-old grandson how to shoplift a jacket from Target. I mean, that was her gift to her grandson. So we need to break that. We need to break into that, not to disturb the family members, but then you get back into incarceration, and there's so many families that have their fathers particularly incarcerated. Right now in the United States of America, as I understand it, 1 out of 23 children, 1 out of 23 of our children have at least one parent incarcerated. many, of course, for drug offenses. Now, look, I drink alcohol, which is a mind-altering, sometimes dangerous drug,
Sure.
sometimes addicting drug. It's not illegal. I could go home tonight and drink 10 martinis, and as long as I didn't beat up my wife or drive a motor vehicle, I'm not violating the law, nor should I be. So what if you take marijuana instead, or even some other drugs, which I have never done and not interested in doing? But if all you do is do that to yourself and you don't hurt other people, that should not be a criminal offense.
Right.
Unless, we should have age restrictions, but for that, so look at it this way. And again, you're talking to somebody who's been in the criminal justice system for all of my professional life. The criminal justice system was designed to protect us from each other. Okay. So if I hit you over the head, or I steal, or I defraud you, you're a victim. You'll complain. You can bring me to the police. Good. The criminal justice system is designed to protect us from each other, and is pretty good at it. It is not designed for, and not at all effective at, protecting us from ourselves. So let's recognize that. And if I'm going to take heroin, which is a terrible thing to do, or methamphetamines or whatever, bring me closer to medical professionals that can help me, instead of pushing me farther away from them and bringing in criminal justice. Police are not at all trained to or effective at protecting me from myself. So that's the difference. And if I drive a motor vehicle under the influence of anything, now what's the difference? Why is that a crime? And the answer is because now I'm putting your safety at risk. Legitimate criminal justice issue. And that's something we have, as a country, have not yet understood, and we've got to.
Well, you made a good point, because I was just thinking, going back to the mother in court, when you talked about the percentage of the kids where there's at least one parent in prison. And the thing with that is that that's the lifestyle they see.
Sure.
And for some kids, it's a nothing. Oh yeah, so-and-so got picked up by the cops. He's going to be in for a few days, but he'll come out.
It's almost,
that's the cycle.
Almost a rite of passage. Hey, you haven't been to jail yet? Oh, you're not even adult yet. I mean, that's true.
And that's the cycle that needs to be, and that's what's sad, because that's the cycle that needs to be broken with these kids.
Exactly. They need to see the opportunities. They need to be able to see that what really works and what doesn't. And really, the American dream does work. And it works for all of us. And hooray for that.
It's fantastic. I love what you're doing. I really love what you're doing. I'm going to put you in touch with the people I know down here.
Thank you. I've written some articles. Go to judgejimgray.com. I have pretty much all of my articles there, and I'm proud of it. And you can contact me through my website, and I respond to the questions that I get. We need to focus on what works, and what works is like we've been talking about. We have programs with the Orange County Bar Association where we mentor, we show kids, we help young professionals, young attorneys. You show them what can happen, but you got to start early. And if you have a bad school and the kid figures that you're dumb, you can't do this.
Right.
And a lot of kids are not. They're different. But if they're dumb by the age of the 5th grade, they're probably never going to reach their potential. And shame on us. So we've got to devote that attention at that time, particularly in their schooling and in their mentoring.
My other question is, have you taken kids on tours at prison so that they could actually see what it's like?
I have not, but there are various things that do that. We have Project Youth by the Orange County Bar Association, where we will actually take young people into jail, and they have to take their shoes off, and they talk with convicts there and everything, and the people that are incarcerated will tell them what's gone on, what the reality is in life, and what a terrible waste of your time to sit here in jail for 2 years doing nothing. We also, in this same, and I hate to bring this up, but in the same Orange County Register article that we were talking about, where rape was going on in Dublin Federal Prison, I mean, my God, they have had a warden and an assistant warden convicted of rape since then. Now, you can imagine having somebody who's in charge of this place, who actually was abusing these women. Just a damnable thing. But It's our government. We need to bring transparency. And what I say with regard to transparency in our prison, because some bad things are happening there, you need to put body cameras on every correctional officer, just like every police officer out. And as soon as people know, hey, I'm on film, I'm going to act better. And the police officer is going to act better too. And the other thing is allow the media full, complete access to all of our nation's jails and prisons. Consistent with security issues, but that can really be done. And then, sure, a lot of people that are inmates, they lie or they exaggerate. Okay, but the people in the media have a vested interest not being made fools of. But hey, there's some things. I've had one guy tell me, hey, I have black mold growing in my jail cell. And so I objected to it, and I said, and the warden wrote back to me, or the prison guards wrote back and said, oh, we've checked it out. There isn't any. It's right here, but allow the media to come in. They can say, wait a minute, there is black mold and it's not healthy. The medical attention, the food, okay, a lot of our jails and prisons are down in hot areas, in desert areas. They should have some air conditioning. I'm not coddling prisoners, but if it's 120 degrees, maybe if you're sitting in a jail cell, maybe you should have some relief. Let's go along with Fyodor Dostoevsky, like I said earlier, and people walk into our jails and prisons. That's what we are as a society, and we should be held accountable for that.
Well, look at what happened during COVID, with the prisons and how quickly it spread through the prisons, and they weren't getting the proper medical care and all that.
And that's right. Just because you're in jail doesn't mean you should have a death sentence either. But we have jail overcrowding. We just have too many people in jail and prison. And again, only I'm a libertarian, a conservative person, believe in don't tread on me, don't tread on anybody, but believe in justice of all things and equal opportunity for everyone. And, putting somebody in prison for 5 years is a long time. And unless you're going to go out there and continue to harm other people, why 20 years? Why not just 5? That's enough. That'll be enough because after a while, if they're in there that long, it's a finishing school for crime. They'll talk to their fellow inmates. What did you do? Oh no, next time you do it better. You can do it better by, robbing the store this way or whatever else. So, you've got to give people hope. And the answer is, you can't make people better by treating them badly. And we need to treat them as individuals. I always call when I'm writing to the incarcerated people, it's always Mr. Jones, Mr. Smith, none of this stuff. They're human beings. And then I went, actually it was a convention sponsored by the Koch brothers, and they get a lot of bad press, but it was called Ban the Box. It was in New Orleans. What does ban the box mean? Anytime almost anyone applies for a job, there's this little box on the application that says, have you ever been convicted of a crime?
I was going to say,
If you check that box, you're gone. They won't even look at you. And if you don't check the box wrongly and they find out eventually, you're still gone. So wait a minute. Don't put that box in. Let's figure out the person first and only later in the program figure out, yes, okay, I made a mistake. And then they said something all of us should recognize. For the most part, no one can be defined by the worst thing they've ever done. I've done some things I'm not proud of, but that doesn't define me. Charles Manson would be different, but most people cannot be defined by the worst thing they've ever done. Let's let a little understanding creep into the conversation.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you about that too, because, about the hiring thing, because I know, when people get out of jail, it's hard for them to find work, boy, because of that.
It really is. And many people who've been in prison, they've been wasting their lives. They want to do better. They want to be able to look people in the eye and say, I'm earning a living. They want to be able to support their family. But look, if I went to prison, in fact, I took a tour of Norco State Prison before, this quite a while ago, and I found out it's a fairly low security prison. Most of them are there because they were drug addicted. And when they're in prison, they didn't get any drug addiction help. So when they'd be released, they were still addicted to drugs. And so they couldn't get a job. Now, what does a person who is addicted to drugs, who can't get a job, who gets depressed do? He goes back and takes drugs or sells drugs. And they found that about 80% of them were back in prison within a year because of exactly that. And it's logical, and it's a total waste of taxpayer money and waste of their lives. So let's assist people in getting jobs. And many of them will become really good employees because they They know what happens if they're not good employees. They want to do better. Give them a chance.
Well, that's the thing. You're right. I mean, that's all they know. I mean, they obviously went to prison for that. They get out, they can't get a job. They need the money. They're going to go back to whatever they were making money at before.
Sure. I mean, it's just logical.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you didn't ask me. There should have been a follow-up question, but I told you what my second favorite all-time play on words was. Would you like to know my all-time favorite?
Let's hear it.
Okay. Well, so what do you call it when you mix an elephant and a rhinoceros? Obviously, that's more important than anything else we've been discussing. What do you call it when you mix an elephant and a rhinoceros? And the answer is elephino.
That's great. That's great.
I don't get invited back very often, but at least that's fun.
I'll invite you back.
Oh, well, all right.
I was already thinking about that. You know,
I'm known in our neighborhood. We go out for walks, or we sit in front with maybe a glass of wine and watch people walk by. And so they say, well, Jim, give me a joke. So I told somebody today who stopped his car and asked me, I want a joke. And he said, well, recently I told my wife, Grace, that you should learn to embrace your mistakes. So she gave me a hug.
Aw. I have a question for you. When you were sitting on the bench, as a judge, and you had to sentence people, did it bother you sometimes, that depending on the case and the age or whatever you were sentencing?
It hurts. And when it stops hurting, you're in the wrong business. And I sometimes with more minor offenses. I for example, I was on a formal probation violation calendar. And I'd have people come back and they'd get a report from probation. And sometimes, they've been ordered not to go in a particular area or not to drink any alcohol or whatever. And if they acknowledge the offense, I tell them, look, I'm in the responsibility business. I'm going to have to send you to jail for the next 5 or 10 days or whatever. But I know you can do better. I'm disappointed with you, but I know you can do better. And I call them up first. And so everybody in the place there gets quiet. Oh my God, this guy in a black robe really means what he says. If I drink alcohol or I go and poach or whatever else, I'm going to have to be responsible for it. But I know you can do better. And then let me tell you 2 other stories. In the same calendar, I would get a report from probation. And they had a question of 5 stars. And if you got 3 stars, basically on your report, that basically meant you're treading water. You're kind of doing okay. You'll get through it. If you had 4 stars, that meant that you were actually taking it seriously for yourself and you're doing pretty well. And if you got 5 stars, that meant you were taking it seriously for yourself, but you were also helping your colleagues take it seriously as well. It didn't happen that often, but I would call those people up first. I would commend them. I would say, you're doing really well. And I would get off the bench and shake their hands. And on 2 opportunities, 2 young men, different times, maybe, 25 years old, they broke down in tears. And they said, Your Honor, no man has ever complimented me for anything I've ever done in my life. Imagine something like that. But if a judge compliments you, I know you can do better. We're the most important social workers really in the country. We can do things that others can't. And you treat them as individuals, you hold them responsible, but you also commend them for what they do that's right. And good things start happening. So we have community courts in Southern California. We have drug courts. In fact, I think I put in the first drug court in the country back in 1983, and they're really working, holding people accountable and responsible. We have veterans courts. We have community, mental health calendars. We have all of these sorts of things, and they're working. It's really a revolution that is spreading where we figure out what people's mental abilities are, what their other abilities are, and we work together. And we'd have a team. It'd be the prosecutor and the public defender and the probation department and the social services. We're all on a team. We all want the right things to happen. Let's group together and have that go. There's the same thing with regard to the abused and neglected children calendar. Sometimes imagine taking the custody of children away from their parents. It breaks your heart. You'd almost be in tears doing it, but you had to. But we were all together. I bring the team together, all of those attorneys on one side, attorney for the parents, attorney for the children, the social worker, all the rest. We're all on the same side. We want the parents to have custody of the children. We want the children to thrive. Let's work together to have that happen. And
Absolutely.
if it can't, then okay. We had a saying where the children should only be forced to wait for so long for their parents to grow up, because childhood is fleeting. But you can do this in the court system, and take note, more and more in the court system, we are doing just that, and we're becoming a lot more successful.
Absolutely. I see my friends are in the chat or in the green room now. So let's see if we can bring them up. Hi, Jesse.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Hello, Henry.
Hey,
Hey.
how we, Judge Jim, Jesse, how we doing?
Good.
My life has never been better, Henry. I hope you can say the same.
These are the
Well,
people
now-
this is the people I was telling you about, Judge. I wanted to bring them on to talk to join the conversation.
Good. Lay it on me. Come on. I
Jesse-
made some outlandish statements. Give me a question.
So Jesse, I understand that you recently been that you've been paroled.
No, I have not recently. I've been out.
Sorry.
I've been out 26 years, man.
Okay.
I'm 71 years old.
Okay.
But,
All right.
So, hey, you gotta forgive me. I'm raising 3 kids. The judge
Okay.
is talking about reunification of the family.
Okay. That's not a problem.
Here, hey, hey,
Jesse, we can hear a few of them in the background.
they're for some reason they have their moments. They're cool, and then they go crazy, right? They play, and so they're one's 6, one's 7, and one's 10. So they're at that stage, right?
Sure.
Anyway, I was listening to what you were saying, Judge, and I agree with you, but the reality of it is that there's not a lot of judges that think like you. There's not a lot of probation officers that think like you. There's not I got my kids, my grandkids. Okay, so I spent approximately 30 years in the penitentiary, right? And then I got out, and on April 2nd of 1996, and I went back to school in 97. And it was probably one of the worst, the hardest things I ever did. Harder than I was a heroin addict, than stopping that. You know what I mean? But anyway, I went through this whole process, and at the time that I was getting my grandson, my first one, I had been out a while. You know what I mean? And I understand that they got to go through the process, but it took me 5 months to get my boy, right? Because they had to run my fingerprint check and blah, bing, blah, blah, all that stuff. And and by that time I already had a doctorate. I got a doctorate, right? And I mean, I'm thinking, well, my God bless, man, I got to go through all this. It's like, so finally I got one. Then when I got the third one, it was easy. By that time it was easy, but you almost feel like throwing in the towel, right? Because they make it so hard.
Well, Jesse, hats off to you. Commend you for this. And it's easy for me to say, because I was blessed with having supportive parents, and I went to college and the rest of that. But then we have the government that steps on people.
Of course.
And, you have occupational licensing, for example, where even to trim trees, to cut hair, you have to get an occupational license, and you're disqualified if you've been convicted of a felony or something. The government is not our friend in that regard.
That's
and
right.
So a lot of judges, I would tell my fellow judges that, look, if you're not interested in being a social worker, you have no business being in the criminal justice system.
That's
that
correct.
You have to understand people, go into civil, that sort of thing. But some people are better than others. But let me tell you a story. When I was a federal prosecutor, there was one federal judge, who was well known as giving maximum sentences for almost everything. And one time I was going across the street at noon over to the federal cafeteria, and I stood next to him, and he said, "Well, hi, Mr. Gray." And I said, "Well, good afternoon, Judge such and such. How are you doing?" And he said, "It's really hard on me on Mondays, because Monday is a sentencing day, and it's hard." And I looked at him, and I don't know what came over me, but I said, "Your Honor, when it stops being hard, you're in the wrong position." And he looked at me like I was crazy, but it's true. And anytime you're going to take away somebody's liberty, it should hurt. Doesn't mean you don't do it, but you don't do it mindlessly. We're talking about human beings, and we can look at you as a prime example where, okay, addicted to heroin is obviously not a good thing, but you've overcome it, and now you are a role model and a guardian of so many important lives. I take my hat off to you, Jesse. Good for you. I'm proud to know you, proud to talk to you.
You know, Judge, I've only met, I've been in front of, I'm a gang expert, and I work for the defense. And I was talking to an attorney earlier today, and I told him this. I'm going to tell it to you. I said, you know, the problem with attorneys is that they have been hearing one narrative concerning gangs and gang behavior and, you know, what gangs do, right? From one perspective all their lives, from law enforcement. Okay, and the media, which gets it from law enforcement. So they have this concept, this ideology in their mind that this is the way it works. And then here I come, and I say, no, everything that you know, or not everything, but almost everything, is inaccurate. And they go like, what? And I say, yeah, look here. And I begin to explain. And they go, that doesn't sound right. Why? Why doesn't it sound right? Because you haven't heard it before? I used to be a gang member, man. I
It was your family.
Media.
It was your family. That was what the family did.
Exactly. I know what they do. I know what it's about. I know, you know, in California and like in 33 states, we have laws, right? Like here in California, it's 186.22 in the penal code, but they have them in 33 other states. And what they do is they throw this thing out, this net, and then they like in the sea, right? And you're catching crabs, and they bring everybody in, right?
It's mindless. And unfortunately, and I went on record with this in Orange County, and I don't know where you are, but they would put the most juvenile prosecutors in juvenile court, the youngest prosecutors, and they would be there and they'd have to show how tough they were and get more convictions so they could go off and do something important. No, that was the most important prosecution work in our country. That you need to have a sophistication, you need to understand these people are being molded. And like I said earlier with Charlotte, you know, Charles Manson is always out there to mentor the people that don't get mentored otherwise. And juvenile street gangs mentor our children and they lead them in that direction. Hey, you want to make some money? Hey, you want to have 3 children? You want to have 3 girls here and you want to get pregnant so they, you know, you can be a dad. Oh, wow, you're really masculine. You know, it leads them in the wrong direction. We need mentoring from people like you that understand it. You can do it a lot better than I can. I was never in a gang like that other than the Little League baseball team.
But the problem, Judge, again, it's systemic, right? Like, for example, here in the city, I'm in Stockton, California.
Okay.
So they had a position that was for the city, the director of the gang violence prevention, right? I submitted my application. I had a doc, everything, you know. They didn't even acknowledge me, and the reason they don't. There's 2 reasons I believe. One is there's more than 2, but one of them is they don't trust me because, like you said, the stigma, you know, that's that follows you forever. That you're an ex-gang member, whatever. It never goes away. That's one. The other thing is I'm not a yes man. I'm not
Jesse, on behalf of society, I apologize to
No,
you. But on the other hand, you know, if you embezzled from a bank and the rest, I don't care what happens. 20 years from now, I'm still not going to make you the president of the bank. But that's a little bit different. But on behalf of society, we are losing a resource by not having Jesse be involved with prosecution of gang members and going out and showing them there's a better way.
You know, I have talked to district attorneys, elected district attorneys, right? And offered my services to them. I said, look, I will train your assistant district attorneys on how to determine a gang case, what the elements of a gang crime are, so that we can save money and heartache for countless of people.
Well, next time you try to do that, let me know and I'll write a letter on your behalf to show
Okay.
them how you are a major resource in our society. You've proven not only that you're now understanding all of this, but you can help others in that position. I can't, but you could. And track me down, judgejimgray.com. And if you're involved in that again, I'll write a letter of endorsement for you. I'll even fly to Stockton or wherever I need to go to encourage them to hire you.
Okay.
Good for you. By the way, Jesse, what do you call a cow that's just given birth? I had an attorney one time said utterly exhausted, which I thought was clever, but I like mine better. What do you call a cow that's just given birth? And the answer is decaffeinated. Sorry, Jesse.
You know what, Judge? If I may, real quick, just throw down a few thoughts. The issues I face out here in the community, in organizing and doing a lot of work inside, spending half of my life in prison, also getting convicted of these labels, gang enhancements, as they call them, right? And really what it is survival, tribal warfare. Every community, every society has community members that are going to make decisions that sometimes are out of line, and that's going to inflict disrespect. That's going to enforce, actions to take. Just like when we go to war as a country, right? This country, let's not forget, it got empowered because of war. It got empowered through violence and various other acts, right? And so, the forefathers of this new claimed title, America, right, which was the Anahuac nation of people of the coast, of the native people that were rooted here, my people, right, and the many peoples that exist. We all been labeled under this tax ID, this social security number, this new ideal of what America is, right? This narrative of this dream, this land of the free, the home of the free, but the peoples whose ancestors slaved themselves to build this country are the most discriminated, are the most destroyed in these communities, are the most traumatized, are the less served, and have various of mental health issues, various of behavioral health issues, and socioeconomical issues because of generational enslavement, generational abuse through the system that carries down into the home and into the kids, that goes into the schools, back into society, and it keeps filtering itself. So, when I first was doing some research on the subject of violence, I researched and Jesse's name popped up. I said, oh man, I know Jesse. We were featured on a New York Times article when I first got out, the second day that I moved to Sacramento, right? And so I continued elaborating with Jesse, seeing his dissertation and seeing that his conclusion was that the result of most of the reasons, and he has 8 elements that he can elaborate, that the reason why people get involved in this tribal warfare or this labeled gang behavior, and he breaks down those components, right? But after concluding and interviewing over 50-something people, breaking it down to the 40s, to the 30s, to the core 5, right? I think it was, right? He concluded that most of this violence is fueled by poverty, right? It is my theory is that it's poverty and trauma systemic, that's systemic, right? Those two are running rampant, and when people are under, and then shame, you got 3 things: shame. When those people say that you acknowledge something positive, they've been shamed their whole life. The reason why people commit violence, the research and other experts in Los Angeles that try to take on these issues in those communities was basically rooted on shame. So I'm working with Jesse and some other folks on our team. We're going to be seeking support from community. Maybe it'd be nice to have the judges to tell us their perspective of the power that they don't have in exercising justice because of certain laws that restrict you at times, right? And so we want to research and prove that what really is leading violence. And if you really look at it, this stuff is generational. Some of it is human nature, right? Some of it is misdirected anger and shame, and then it's flight or flight circumstances. When you're under duress, when you're under war in your communities for hunger, and you're being suppressed and oppressed by the system. CPS is trying to take your kids, right? They're falsifying stuff. They don't care. They're just going to throw them to the system. Your housing rights ain't being violated, right? The court systems eat you up. You know, when it comes to a criminal offense, oh yeah, good luck being a black or brown person with no funding for a legal representation in the court system, Judge. We have no justice whatsoever. We have no voice, right? And that's been the problem. We have a community that's been anger with rage when you oppress it so much. You know, you've done research on what happens when you put people in prisons and you put a category of people as guards, and that whole power psychological thing that happens, right? It's completely unhealthy, and it's inhumane to incarcerate people when you could provide better treatment and clinical work that's going to deal with the root causes of childhood trauma. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, well, Henry, you said a great deal there, and I agree with much of what you said. The deal is we have to be responsible for what we do. We have to understand that the United States of America, we've made some mistakes. We've made some foundational mistakes. We treated women in our founding. I've written a musical called Convention, The Birth of America, and I take to task the founders because we have a song in there, What About Me? Okay, you're feeling so great, liberties for everybody. Well, wait a minute. What about the slaves? What about me? You know, you build it on my back. What about women? You know, they couldn't own property. They couldn't vote. What about, you know, the Native Americans, where you took our land and we welcomed you in our country, and now look what's happened. And even the working folks, they couldn't own property. But life is complicated. Well, what are we going to do? Give up? No, the answer is no, but we're still in the responsibility business. What we do, though, is show people that they have a better way. And we don't unload and simply unload and give up on people. Yeah, I got to tell you, if you're going to take a gun and rob a liquor store, you've got to be held accountable. But let's try to get to those folks first and show that that's not the way to go. And then not unduly expect that, you know, when you're 18 years old, you're not the same person as you are when you're 28 or 38. You know, ask Henry, ask Jesse, ask Jim. You know, so we need to be more understanding, but we also need to get away from this victimization stuff, because victimization is a one-way street down in the wrong direction. You've got to be responsible for what you do.
And let me clarify, Judge. You know, in no way, and I live my life, and I will continue my life in service. If you look up, most of my work has to do with helping other people and all the different systemic barriers that they face. So you become an expert in seeing firsthand what is being done to these families that go to court. They they can't even speak for themselves, right? And so, like, the thing is acknowledging, not playing victim, but acknowledging what leads us to commit these crimes. What are the circumstances? We always want to address the symptom of the problem, and that's been the problem with our society. They they don't do the research into what's fueling this behavior, what's leading these young people to be at the highest risk of to get killed, to get shot, to become addicted and overdose and have tragic losses in their life, at those age factors, right? And a lot of it is the society we live in, the communities that you take all the resources, you take all the food, you leave a community hungry, you're going to have desperation, you're going to have chaos, you're going to have insanity. And then you add generational trauma, you're going to have parents in chaos too, that they haven't held their trauma. And who helps that family? CPS? No, they take the kids. You know what I'm saying? We don't have effective trauma recovery healing work that is needed in our communities from our people. You know.
Let me let you in on a secret that you're talking about. Life is complicated. There's all kinds of things going on. Everything you said is true, and everything you said also has we need to focus upon what works. One thing that works is responsibility. Another thing that works is, hey, we're all human. We all make mistakes. We all will go in the direction that we are led. And mentoring is huge. So in the meantime, right this minute, Henry and Jesse, I salute you both. You've been in there, you understand it, and you're trying to help our fellow man. I earlier spoke about what's the most important thing in life, and that's gratification. Both of you, I'm sure, are feeling right now a great deal of gratification because you have been able to lead other people in a direction where they will be able to thrive. And I bless you for it. And if you think there's anything that I can do, Judge Jim Gray, retired in Orange County, let me know, and I will try to do it. Good for you. We're all in this together. We're just in this together.
Thank you, Judge.
Judge, listen, I wanna leave you with this. I commend you for understanding, no doubt. You know, you seem to be a judge. You remind me of Judge Luvianos over here in San Joaquin County. He's the drug court, judge. I don't know if you know him, but
I do not.
he's
Drug courts work.
don't get me wrong. Look, I've met good judges, but I also know that most judges are gatekeepers for the district attorney. I know this because I work in those things. And
Let's just, Jesse, let's just say some, or maybe even many, but not most. At least they don't do it
well,
intentionally.
not you, without doubt, okay, and not Judge Luvianos, and not Judge Murray. Judge Murray, I've been to his house, had dinner. He's a justice now in the third district court, and he's a friend of mine. And there's some good judges. Don't get me wrong, and I good DAs too. I don't know. I only met 2 so far in my work, but they're good guys. They have to do a job. We all have to do our part, right? And these guys do their part, even though I can only imagine what they go through from a different perspective, right? You know what I mean? Like, in other words, they don't want to seem too soft on crime, right? But it's because it's political and all that other stuff. So I get all that. I get it.
All connected.
So there's a lot of different things going on. Yes,
Sure.
probably me and Henry are probably more on the sympathetic side for the individuals that come out of the neighborhood. Okay.
Of course.
And
Rightfully so.
yeah,
Rightfully so. But you're helping to mentor them. And
Yeah.
that is huge. By the way, Jesse, again, as I salute you, but
yeah,
do you know why the Scarecrow was given an award?
I have no idea.
Because he was found to be outstanding in his field.
Yeah. Yeah, I get you.
Best I could do for the moment. We're in this together. You already know how to find me, and I will help you if I can on what you're doing, because what you do works.
Let's see what we're going to come up with, some things, and and I mean, I understand the system really well. Okay, I really do. I'm pretty sure Henry does too, right? Henry might be a little bit more, I think, radical than I am because he's younger, right? And I'm 71 years old and I'm pretty much burned out, right? But
Jesse, don't give me that stuff. I'm older than you are, and I'm still young.
I know. I'm just saying, right? Anyway, so like you'll hear from me. I imagine you'll hear from us soon. But I'm gonna have to let you guys go. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Look forward to it.
It's a pleasure. I don't even know who you are up there in the corner. I know you're the guy in charge, right?
But I'm the gal in charge. Yeah.
Oh, you're the girl in charge. Okay, I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't tell.
No, Jesse, I'm sorry. In today's world, you can't say girl.
I can't.
Person. I'm the person in charge.
The person, it's the woman, but not woman. Girl.
Okay, well,
that's all good, Jesse.
Sometimes I'm not politically correct. You know what I mean? What I gotta say. I come from, I'm an educated man.
Jesse, it's a crazy world. Who knows?
But anyway, I'm sure we'll talk again. And
look forward to it.
Okay.
It's been an honor to talk with all 3 of you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
And Henry, I told him about your programs and what you guys are doing with the younger kids and stuff, and I'm glad you came on, and thank you.
We will follow up, Judge. For Charlotte, we're going to be doing a documentary, a research study on the root causes of violence, like really deep, from our people. Who better than us? The perspective from the judges, the perspective from the gang, the expert, right? And the families as well. And the school systems, right? We're all contributors to this problem. We're all responsible for resolving it and healing it, as opposed to playing the blame card and just getting stuck in that cycle of no progress.
Henry, good for you. Count me in. Thank
you. A pleasure.
Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate it.
All righty. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, Henry.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. We'll get this back here. Okay. Yeah, I wanted you to meet them.
Thank you.
Because they do. Henry is probably the hardest working person I know who does this stuff. They're forever teaching mentoring classes, everything, to get to get more.
It's just, we're all in this together, and
Yeah.
he's contributing mightily. Good for him. He has a different perspective. Jesse does. I do. You do. Let's all figure out what works and focus on it. And we've gotten away from that. We've gotten so political that the answer is put everybody in prison. And it's just, it's a waste. It's a crime in itself. And we've got to get away from that. We're still there right now. But again, people that are defendants, people that are incarcerated do not have much political pull. It's up to us to be their voice. And you are, and thank you for that. And so are Jesse and the rest.
Well, thank you, sir. And I want to stay in touch with you. I'd like to get you back on to talk, more about what you do and stuff, because this is close to my heart. That's my thing. If I can help one kid, stay out of trouble, I've accomplished something.
Well, thank you for that. And again, maybe you weren't aware of this, but I'll leave you with a little factoid that you may not have heard this, but the what was it? I'm sorry, forgot it.
I'm still thinking about the cow.
There you go. Oh well, I'll come up with something later. But at any rate, it's a pleasure to be with you, and I look forward to doing it again.
All right, sir. Thank you so much. You have a good evening.
Thank you. Promise. You too.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, guys. That was really cool. I mean, it's neat to hear of somebody else who's out trying to help people, because like I said, I saw some of this stuff firsthand when I was covering courts in Yolo County. Some of these families that came in, and it was really heartbreaking because, I'm half Mexican, and I come from a Mexican family, and seeing these families just broke my heart, So I'm glad they both came on. Thank you, Henry, and thank you, Jesse, for coming on. Henry is the community healer here in Sacramento, and like I said, he does has a lot of mentorship programs that he's putting together, and they're always working with kids and working with adults to try and help get the adults to go out and help these kids too. Tomorrow, we're going to be on at 6 p.m. Pacific. We're shifting gears with time. My guest is from Australia. His name is Jesse Fink, and he's written one book about the rock group AC/DC, but he's also written a book about their former lead singer, Bon Scott. And apparently he's done some improvements to the book. So he's going to be on talking about the life and times of Bon Scott. All right. If you like the show, actually, no, I'm ahead of myself again. After the show, after I get done talking, our guest has written 4 books. I'll show you the books he's written, where you can get them, and his website, so you guys can check him out and read his stuff, because like he says, he's got some really interesting articles and stuff on his website, so you can check that out. Now, okay, please remember that I am teaching a psychic development class on the it's just crazy tonight. Okay. Yes, on the 28th, I will be teaching a psychic development class. And I will also be teaching a Ghost Hunting 101 class on the 18th. So check those out over at California Haunts Meetup. Just type in California Haunts Meetup and you're there. If you like the show, share it with 5 people. If you hated the show, share it with 5 of your enemies. We're equal opportunity here at California Haunts Radio. And also subscribe to our YouTube. If you're watching from YouTube, there's a little ghost in the corner with a magnifying glass and a Sherlock Holmes hat on. That's our mascot. Click on that. We've got over 260 videos over there, and they're all different topics. They're like this show. They're paranormal oriented, all kinds of stuff. So I like to vary it. I'm a journalist. I'm a photojournalist. That's what I do. So I like to cover a little bit of everything. I think you'll find something that you'll like. I have a little bit of something for everybody. Visit our website at californiahauntsradio.com, or if you're interested in our paranormal services, californiahaunts.org. You see that ticker at the bottom. The reason why that ticker is at the bottom is because California Haunts does not take any kind of monetary thing to go ghost hunting or anything like that. So, usually we get donations when we do stuff. But, like I said, the goal is to help people and help them understand what's going on in their houses and everything. And that's what we do. And just like with this, my goal is not only to entertain, but to educate people on topics like this and the other stuff that we cover, whether it's, extraterrestrials or whatever. That's my goal, is to educate people. So if a computer breaks, if the mic breaks, if the headphones break, lights, I have to pay for it. It all comes out of my pocket, just like the internet comes out of my pocket. Everything comes out of my pocket. So sometimes, I got to pay the bills just like everybody else. And that's why that ticker's down there. If you could help me out a little bit, that'd be great. PayPal.me at California Haunts. Or if you're uncomfortable with PayPal, Venmo and then type in California Haunts. It all goes back into production for the show. It goes back into equipment for my paranormal team, gas. Maybe if we have to stay at a hotel to come into your house to investigate, it goes into that. So nothing goes into my pocket. So if you could help me out a little bit, that would be great. I'd appreciate it. In the meantime, I will see you tomorrow at 6 p.m. Pacific, and we will be interviewing Jesse Fink. And here are the 4 books that our guest, let me get the right button, there we go, that our guest has written, and where you can get it, and also his website. Website, judgejimgray.com. And 2 Paragraphs for Liberty and Wearing the Robe are 2 of the books that he has. All Rise and Why Our Drug Laws Have Failed and What We Can Do About It. And those are available at Amazon. And again, I will see you tomorrow at 6 p.m. Have a good rest of your evening. See ya.